Wait, that girl is only 4 years old? A child swimming in the open sea. And this is no coincidence. It's part of an entire way of life. Ha Long Bay, a UNESCO World Heritage Site recognized twice for its outstanding natural value. But what I'm about to show you isn't about limestone cliffs or caves. It's about a village with no land, a place where people are born, grow up, get married, and spend their entire lives on the water. Stay with me for the next 20 minutes. This story may completely change the way you see the sea.
Hello everyone! We're in Ha Long Bay, Quang Ninh Province, one of the few provinces in Vietnam that remained unchanged during the country's major administrative restructuring in 2025. Even the name Ha Long Bay was specially preserved in order to protect the identity and value of this internationally recognized World Heritage Site. But today, I'm not heading to Sung Sot Cave or the famous Fighting Cock's Islet you've probably seen all over Instagram. I'm going to Cua Van Fishing Village, one of 7 floating fishing communities that still exist in the heart of the bay. Forget the traditional image of a fishing village, houses along a sandy shore, fishing boats anchored offshore. Cua Van is completely different. This is a community where nearly 180 households live in floating homes, almost 30 kilometers by sea from central Ha Long.
This is Mr. Nu Ba Khan, the man who is going to help me understand what makes these waters so special. Ha Long Bay has exceptional universal values and has been recognized twice by UNESCO as a World Natural Heritage Site. But beyond its spectacular landscape, the bay also holds immense historical and cultural value. The people who have lived here trace their roots back to the ancient Ha Long culture, dating from around 3,500 to 5,000 years ago. Ancient Vietnamese communities were already living in this bay thousands of years ago. They were born on the sea, lived on the sea, and when they returned to nature, it was also through the sea.
Think about that for a moment. 5,000 years. While most human civilizations were building homes on solid ground, a community here chose an entirely different path. They chose to live with the water, not fight against it. Even the name Cua Van has a story behind it. Some say the village was named after a sheltered stretch of water near a sea entrance known as Cua Van. But local fishermen prefer another interpretation based on the meaning of the words themselves. Cua means a gateway or passage leading out to the open sea, where boats travel in and out. Van traditionally refers to a community of fishermen living and working on rivers or at sea. Put the two together, and Cua Van means something like the fishing village at the gateway to the sea.
Vietnamese place names can be wonderfully poetic, can't they? At the entrance to the village stand 5 limestone peaks, which local people call the 5 Emeralds. They believe these mountains protect the village and preserve its peace. For the people of Cua Van, the rocks and water here are not only beautiful, they are sacred. People who live at sea pay very close attention to spiritual beliefs because the sea is both the source of their livelihood and an extremely harsh environment. With generations of experience, they can look at the sky, the tide, and the direction of the wind and immediately know whether a storm is coming.
According to Mr. Can, all of Cua Van's fishing families share roots in 2 ancient fishing settlements known as Giang Vong and Truc Vong. Today, this is one of the few places where the distinctive water-based culture of Ha Long Bay has been preserved in such a complete form. In the past, families lived aboard traditional 3-sided wooden fishing boats. As living standards improved, many moved into floating houses anchored along the edges of the limestone islands.
These homes are securely tied together, an ingenious system that helps them withstand rough seas and strong winds.
Fishing life in Kuavan is very distinctive. Traditionally, husband and wife had to work together if they wanted to make a living at sea. The boats used to be very small. The wife would sit at the stern cooking meals, and then the couple would eat together right there on the boat. And this is something that really impressed me. Unlike many fishing communities on land, where men traditionally go out to sea while women remain at home, life in Kuavan has long depended on both men and women sharing the work. Women not only fish alongside their husbands, they also handle much of the trading and commerce, becoming the vital link between the floating village and the mainland. Remember the 4-year-old child I mentioned at the beginning of the video? The one who could swim better than me? Here's why. When children in Kuavan are just beginning to crawl, families traditionally tie a cord around one of their legs to stop them from accidentally falling into the water. Because they are born surrounded by the sea, they adapt to it incredibly quickly. By the age of 4 or 5, many can already swim. By 7 or 8, they can row boats and untangle fishing nets with confidence. But behind that charming image lies a much harsher reality. For many years, children here had very little contact with the outside world and almost no access to formal education. Life on the water meant shortages not only of material necessities, but also of educational opportunities. Over the past decade, however, programs often described as bringing literacy to the sea have helped bring education to children in fishing communities. As tourism developed, visitors also began donating school uniforms, books, and learning materials. Today, children from Kuavan can dream of futures that reach far beyond the waters of the bay. Here's something that made me stop and film separately. There are 13 family clans in Kuavan, and each has a family head, but not a single one has a written genealogy. Why? Because their ancestors were born and raised entirely on the water, and many could not read or write. So instead of written family records, each clan preserved its history through the ancestral altar. Each level of the altar represents a generation. Even the families with the longest memories can usually trace their ancestry back only around 4 generations. Beyond that, their history survives only through oral tradition. The people of Kuavan regard this ancestral altar as the family record left behind by their forefathers. Descendants must continue maintaining the incense burner and honoring their ancestors so that the family may live in health and stability. This is perhaps the most sensitive part of the story, but I think it deserves to be told. In Kuavan, there is one subject people traditionally avoid discussing. They do not ask about the burial places of those who have died. For them, those places are sacred and should remain completely undisturbed. In earlier generations, water burials were practiced here. Perhaps because of the emotional weight surrounding that tradition, many people still prefer not to talk about it.
In the past, the original inhabitants of Ha Long were born on the sea, grew up on the sea, and when they died, their bodies were also returned to the sea. In more recent times, local authorities have encouraged families to bring the deceased to the mainland for burial. When someone dies, the first thing the family does is inform the ancestors. Then they tell the water deity that this person has returned to eternity, to the sea itself. There is an old Vietnamese belief: the land has its guardian spirit, and the rivers have their water spirits. For the fishermen of Ha Long Bay, the river and sea deity, Ha Ba, represents the supreme spiritual power governing the mysterious waters around them. Young and old, men and women, the people of Kuavan traditionally worship the water spirit with great seriousness. They pray for calm seas, for safe journeys, and for nets heavy with fish and shrimp. Across Ha Long Bay, there are 7 floating fishing villages, but Qua Van remains the largest and the most famous. So famous, in fact, that the international travel website JourneyET.com once included Qua Van among its list of the 16 most beautiful ancient villages in the world, based on 3 main qualities: its sense of history, its waterside beauty, and its preservation of traditional culture. A small floating village in a bay in Vietnam, listed alongside ancient villages from Europe and Asia. Now you understand why I had to come all the way here to film this story. This is Mr. Nguyen Van Hu, an elderly fisherman approaching a century of life. He told me that generations of experience with tides, storms, and natural phenomena were preserved by the people of Qua Van in a form you might not expect. One of the most memorable parts of life in Qua Van is singing. People sing wherever they are. They sing while rowing boats. They sing while fishing. The purpose is to lift the spirit and make life at sea feel lighter. No playlists, no headphones, no Spotify. Just human voices and the sound of the waves.
Mà véo bon trời con chưa tuổi đậu non chứ trăng mơ có lòng thì đợi thì chờ có lòng thương bền thương bờ thì neo.
To preserve this extraordinary culture, the Qua Van Floating Cultural Center was established, the first floating cultural center in Vietnam dedicated specifically to the life and heritage of fishing communities. When I first got the opportunity to work here, I was so happy because I could meet foreign visitors, students, and researchers who came to learn about our lives. I'm very proud to introduce them to the culture and daily life of the fishing community. The center currently presents 6 main themes, each showing a different aspect of the material, spiritual, and religious life of the fishing communities of Ha Long Bay. If you come to Qua Van, don't just arrive, take a few photos, and leave. You can explore Tien Ong Cave, row through the waters around Ba Ham Lake, go squid fishing, visit traditional fishing grounds, and much of it can be experienced aboard small wooden boats rowed by the local fishermen themselves. Afterward, you can even stay overnight with a fishing family and immerse yourself in traditional call and response love songs and sea chants that rise above the sound of the waves, all within a landscape recognized by the world as a natural wonder. I've traveled to many places around the world, but very few have made me understand the true meaning of the phrase, "The boat is our home, the sea is our homeland," the way Qua Van does. If this video makes you want to pack your backpack and come here yourself, hit like, subscribe, and leave CUAVAN in the comments below. Next week, I'll be back with another story, this time about people who live among some of the highest limestone cliffs in Vietnam. I'll see you in the next video.